You know that feeling when you walk into a room and immediately scan for danger? Not the physical, but the emotional kind. Within seconds, you've clocked the tone of someone's voice, the tightness around their mouth, the way they're holding their shoulders, and you're already adjusting yourself to match whatever mood is filling that space. If you grew up doing this, you weren't born anxious. You were trained to be a radar system in your own home. I recently got a comment from a viewer that really stayed with me. She commented that they grew up drenched in the emotional atmosphere of their mother's pain. They describe themselves as hypersensitive, hyper-vigilant, and because no one ever explained why their mother was so volatile, they just assumed it was their fault. They weren't good enough, that if they could just figure out the right thing to say or do, everything would calm down. And I just felt that really deeply because that's what hypervigilant children do. They become little experts, like monitoring the weather, trying to predict the next storm before it hits. When you're a child and the emotional atmosphere at home is unpredictable or intense, whether it's because of unresolved trauma, mental illness, addiction, or just a parent who never learned how to regulate their emotions, you adapt. You must. You learn to watch, to listen, to become very good at reading the smallest shifts in mood. Because if you can see it coming, maybe you can stop it. Maybe you can fix it. Maybe you can keep everyone else safe. You become the peacemaker, the one who manages everyone else's feelings, the one who takes responsibility for the emotional weather that was never yours to control. And here's the thing, you were doing what you needed to do to survive, but it came at a cost. Because when you grow up like this, you don't learn that your feelings matter. You don't learn to trust your own needs. You learn that love means vigilance, and that safety means control, and that if something goes wrong, it's probably because you missed a signal somewhere. I also want to acknowledge something that I think has made this harder for a lot of us: isolation. In many cultures, historically, children grew up surrounded by the extended family. If things were tense at home, there was a grandmother's house to go to. An aunt would take you for a few days. Neighbors who knew your family and quietly kept an eye out. Of course, you were still affected by what was happening, don't get me wrong, but you had other adults around, other places to exist where the air felt different. A lot of people didn't have that. Maybe because the family was spread across countries, maybe because of divorce or estrangement, or just the way modern life works today. We're more isolated. When home was the only place and that one parent was your whole world, there was nowhere to discharge that hypervigilance, no release valve. I think for many, we're also trapped in our heads more than before. And I'm not trying to sound like, oh, back in my good old days. No, genuinely, kids used to spend hours playing outside. And that helped in naturally releasing all that pent up or anxious energy. Today, most children are glued on their screens, and that hypervigilance just sits in the body with nowhere to be released. If you grew up like this in isolation, without that physical outlet or the other adults. I just want you to understand that those conditions made it harder for you. Many carry this into adulthood without even realizing it. The ones who can't relax in relationships because they're always watching for the shift, the sign that things are about to fall apart. They're anxious in ways they can't quite explain, exhausted from managing dynamics that aren't theirs to manage. They feel responsible for other people's moods in a way that intimacy feels like a job. Sometimes they realize that the only way to stop drowning in that emotional atmosphere is to step out of it, sometimes completely. If you've gone low contact or no contact with a parent because this toxicity was too much, because staying connected meant losing yourself, that's not a failure. You were choosing your own peace after years of prioritizing someone else's. Healing doesn't always look like reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like boundaries. Sometimes it looks like distance. And sometimes it looks like a clean cutoff. Your safety matters, your mental health matters, and you're allowed to protect yourself from people, even those who you tried so hard to save before. I'm not a therapist, I'm just a woman who's lived through all these things and wanting to share things that helped me. When I was in my teen years, I didn't have the language for what I was feeling. I just knew I felt better when I could escape into the things that I loved. Hobbies became my lifeline: reading, drawing, going outside, playing sports. Because there, I wasn't responsible for anyone's emotional state. It wasn't until much, much later as an adult that I started learning about breathwork. I know it sounds kind of woo, but it genuinely helps. Learning how to regulate my own nervous system, calming myself down instead of waiting for the environment around me to calm down first, that was a game changer. And then I also started asking myself a simple question when I'd feel old hypervigilance kick in. Can I change this situation? If the answer was no, and it usually was, I'd remind myself, this is not mine to carry. It sounds easy, but it's not. But it definitely helps me take responsibility not to fall into other people's emotional situations. So I want you to try the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So you inhale for a count of 4, you hold for a count of 7, and then you exhale by making that whoosh sound from your mouth for a count of 8. That long exhale tells your nervous system that the storm has passed, that you're feeling safe. You can learn to trust that you're safe. You can learn that other people's emotions are theirs, not yours to manage or to fix. It takes time and practice. It takes grieving the childhood you didn't get to have, the one where you were allowed just to be a child instead of an emotional caretaker. You can do this. You can heal. You can walk into rooms without immediately clocking into everyone's mood. You can have relationships where you're not constantly bracing for impact. Let me know in the comments if you've experienced this in your childhood and what helped you become less hypervigilant. Share it because it may help someone else. That's all for today. I hope you have a blessed day. From my heart to yours. Bye for now.